What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA show. And today we are back with more content about Jon Jones, as he just did his first interview in forever with Kevin Iole, who is fast becoming the people's favorite journalist in mixed martial arts. So we got this interview, and he interviewed Jon Jones, which was pretty interesting because he did say some comments about pushing Dana White to make the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight, pushing back on Dana White's constant claims that Jon Jones is not only the pound for pound, or is not only the GOAT of the sport, but the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world currently, despite the inactivity. And we can talk about that at another time. The funny thing is people get so heated about this pound for pound ranking, and yet there are no specific mathematical metrics that are assigned to how these calculations are made. So we talk about, oh, he's been too inactive. Well, there is no quantitative metric that by which we apply activity. So those arguments are just, I mean, we're all just making up arguments as we go. Some people think activity should mean more, some people think it should mean less. Okay, but the argument's silly, so I'm not even gonna go there. But let's talk about this interview. And this interview, I think, addresses a lot of things, and namely one of the most important things it addresses is why Jon Jones, in his own words, believes that he should fight Stipe, that Stipe is the fight, is an exciting fight, is a great legacy fight that people will look back on and really think fondly of, just in terms of cementing Jon Jones's legacy. So let's first go over to this clip and let's hear Jon Jones talk about specifically why he believes the Stipe fight makes sense. And I do tend to agree with him. So let's check it out right now.
I feel that it's unfortunate that we live in a world where one bad performance discredits a person so much.
What he's talking about here is he's talking about Stipe's last loss to Francis Ngannou, which that's the last time we saw him fight, right? And that is a problem in the world of mixed martial arts. In this sport, you have one loss and everybody thinks you're done. Everybody thinks you're over with. And we have seen that time and time again, that people are able to, certain fighters are able to come back after these losses and come back stronger than ever, better than ever. And yeah, we have the argument of age for Stipe, but we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. People are making a lot of assumptions. So let's keep listening to Jon Jones.
Stipe has beat everyone. I mean, Junior Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou, Daniel Cormier, some of the biggest names, many champions he's defeated. And I feel like I'm wise enough to know that one bad night doesn't make a man or break a man. And Stipe is every bit of worthy as my opponent. It's not easy winning championships back to back, especially in the heavyweight division. And what he's done is truly special. And I just want to give the man his opportunity. I know fighting me for a lot of athletes is a really big deal. And if anyone deserves to be in there with me, it's Stipe Miocic.
So let's just talk about this. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's choosing Stipe because he's ducking Tom Aspinall. And I actually don't think that's the case. I think that he would be willing to fight Tom Aspinall if Tom Aspinall had a more established career, meaning obviously Tom Aspinall is incredible. He might be the greatest heavyweight we've ever seen in terms of his skills, but we don't know yet. And Jon Jones makes a really good point about this in particular when he's point blank asked about fighting Tom Aspinall. But first, let me go to this clip before we jump to the Tom Aspinall discussion. All right, let's check this out here a little bit more from Jon Jones.
I believe guys like Stipe and we help take the UFC to a new level. And just because we've been off for a while doesn't mean we're not great athletes and we don't have strong fan bases. We don't have MMA historians who, I shouldn't call it historians, but longtime MMA fans who always question what would happen with Jon and Stipe. I'm 37 years old and I am not a person to be counted out. And at 42, I don't believe Stipe is a person to be counted out. Styles makes matchups, and for the real long-term MMA fans who grew up watching both Stipe and I compete, I think this fight is always going to be intriguing to them.
And I agree. And this is kind of my perspective. I do think it's a fascinating matchup. I know he's apparently a 6-1 favorite in the odds, and there's probably a lot of factors that go into that. I'm sure the age does go in. I'm sure the lack of activity from Stipe goes in. Jon hasn't particularly been that active either, though. So I don't feel like, I don't know. I don't know if the 6-1 is warranted or not. Obviously, the odds makers have their rationale and reasons. But I think from a legacy standpoint, once again, this is a great fight. And people, I think, are looking down on it when, and if there wasn't such a negative narrative around it and this whole idea of Jon Jones ducking Tom Aspinall. I feel like if that wasn't there, people would be really excited about this fight. But somewhere along the lines, fans, we just got greedy in terms of the fights we wanted. We got this bad taste in our mouths, I guess, about why Jon Jones has taken this fight. And we don't even know if that's true. And I don't think it's true. I've talked about that in other videos. I think he took this fight at the time because it did make the most sense from a legacy standpoint. Tom Aspinall wasn't the interim title belt holder. So a Stipe call-up made way more sense than Tom Aspinall. Obviously, since then, he's gone on to win the interim title. He's looked extraordinary. He's looked dangerous. So maybe that fight does seem quite competitive and quite dangerous for Jon Jones. And that may be true. Even a Sergey fight or a Volkov fight, those all might be dangerous fights for Jon Jones. But it's not like he's ducking those fighters. He's taken the fight that when we look back, which I think is fairly respectable. A lot of fighters fight for legacy. Habib said it all the time. He's taken a fight that when we look back, we'll be like, wow, Jon Jones was just the legend destroyer. This will be the 9th champion or 8th champion, I can't remember, that he will have fought and defeated if he does indeed defeat him. So I think this fight really makes a lot of sense. And I think why not give Stipe what he's owed as well as a champion? I think he's earned more than anybody to have this matchup. If somebody's going to take this last matchup against Jon Jones, it should be Stipe. Now we're going to get into why fighting Tom Aspinall doesn't make sense. And again, let's go to Jon Jones's own words. And I think he makes a pretty interesting point here. And let's listen. And this is something that I did say. I don't believe Jon Jones will fight Tom Aspinall. I think it'd be cool if he wanted to, and if he does it, great. But I thought from the beginning that he wouldn't. And I actually don't even think it's just solely him that doesn't want the fight. I don't think the UFC wants that fight. I think they want Jon Jones to ride off into the sunset. But this is what he says in his own words, and it does make a lot of sense in my opinion.
So here's the question: you're fighting Stipe Miocic, and I know you're focused on that fight. If you defeat him, as you're a 6-1 favorite to win the fight, if you defeat him, will you defend your belt against Aspinall, who has the interim title?
More than likely not. More than likely not. I feel like Tom Aspinall is, I don't want to say nobody, but he just hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything. And I understand that. I mean, he won his belt against Sergey. Sergey just got slaughtered by someone else. So it's just like, I'm not here to gamble someone else making a name off of me. I'm here to compete against the guys where when we look back, 10 years from now, it'd be like Jon Jones fought this guy and that guy and this legend and this champion and this champion. If there were to be a fight of a guy that's still on our UFC roster that would be not only financially worth it, but legacy worth it, it would be Alex Perreira. Alex Perreira and I, we both 30.
We're going to come back to this point on Alex Perreira, but I think the point that he's making about Tom Aspinall is one that we can't ignore. I mean, if you look, if you're looking at it from a legacy standpoint, and I hate to say it because I think Tom Aspinall is going to be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. That's what it looks like, and that's what people are saying, and we can see it from his skill set. We see what he did to Sergey, and that was, again, a short notice fight where he had a lot of injuries and he just starched him in the first round. He's got tremendous power, speed, agility, grappling game. He's the complete fighter. I think what Jon Jones is saying, though, is he wants names on the resume that have done incredible things, and Stipe fits that bill. And I understand that. I don't see what's so wrong with that perspective. I think Habib wanted to fight GSP for the very same reason, just because there was such amazing legacy and history there, even though maybe GSP was out of his prime, but people were clamoring for that fight. People would have been excited for that. So I don't see why this is so different. I think the thing that is bothering people the most is just that Tom Aspinall is so beloved, and he does seem to be so incredible, bursting with potential. But imagine this. Imagine if Jon Jones goes out and fights Tom Aspinall and beats him. And just what if that defeat created an issue for Tom Aspinall and he was never able to get the belt, was never able to claim the heavyweight title later on in his career, and just kind of, I'm just saying, not saying that would happen, but what if that happened? People would look at this as, oh, he just beat some random guy. I'm saying 10 years from now when we look back, that's the truth. That's the truth of the MMA world. Right now, Tom Aspinall is on the forefront of everybody's mind because we're so impressed with what he's been doing lately, but he's still unproven. And I think that's his point, and it's a fair one. And Jon Jones also brings up the fact that once upon a time, the guy to beat was apparently Johnny Walker. Everybody was saying that Johnny Walker is the guy with the skill set and the physique and the mentality to come in and finally take down Jon Jones. And as talented and amazing as Johnny Walker is, nobody's talking about that now. And that's because of the way his career has gone since. So we've seen this before. And that's what Jon Jones has been around long enough. He's seen this before. He's seen other prospects rise up and say, this is the guy to beat him. That's the guy to beat him. And why should he jump around and take fights just because of who's hot at one current time? It's like he's gone through like multiple generations and iterations of this. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I don't begrudge him for having this perspective. Okay. Now we're going to get to the last topic, which is we're going to talk about Alex Perreira. And again, this makes a little bit more sense. You might argue that, well, he's maybe calling out Alex Perreira because he feels like it's a favorable matchup. Maybe there's some element of that to that decision, but he's looking at it as somebody who's been a double champ, okay, a 2-division champ who's just been smashing champions and smashing people. Yuri Prohaska, Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya. I mean, the list goes on. He had a great fight again. I know Khalil Roundtree wasn't a former champion, but that was an amazing fight that everybody loved. I think the fight of the year, in my opinion. So now he talks about fighting Alex Perreira. And again, it makes sense. Alex Perreira is no slouch, by the way. That's a very, very dangerous fight, but he wants it for the legacy value. And here the legacy value makes sense. So let me let Jon Jones explain again in his own words why.
Light heavyweight champ.
Yeah, we're both 37 years old. Right now, I weigh about 235. I'm an incredibly light heavyweight. I think Perreira walks around at 240. And I think that fight would go much farther on my legacy than a young man who's cool today and maybe gone tomorrow. I remember a time when the whole world thought Johnny Walker was going to be the guy to beat me. And no disrespect for Johnny Walker, but I mean, we all have seen the way his career's played out. I've just been here too long to get all excited about someone who's hot today. I'm here for legacy. I've been gambling for way too long to just take random fights.
So there it is. This is the video that I wanted to make today, highlighting this interview and see what people said. I haven't even read the comments for this Kevin Iole interview. I imagine I'm probably in the minority with this perspective. I'm sure a lot of people are giving a lot of hate just because that's how it's been going. I think it's so ingrained in people's minds, but just take this into account. Give me your thoughts. Give this perspective a little bit of consideration. I don't see why people have to come down so hard on Jon Jones. I do think it's because a lot of people on YouTube have been coming down on him and sort of galvanizing the public and getting the public sentiment against him. I don't know if it's malicious. I wouldn't say it's necessarily malicious, but it's just what's happened. And then now we've just gained more and more momentum and people just hate this fight for whatever reason. It's going to be a good fight. I think you should be excited about it. I think it's not fair to say that Jon Jones is ducking. I think he makes a lot of valid points about why he doesn't want that fight. It's just not worth it. And why is that such a bad thing? So anyways, those are my thoughts. That's my perspective. Interesting interview. I encourage you to check it out. Kevin Iole. He's got a new YouTube channel. It's blowing up. So thank you guys so much. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you did like the video, make sure to click that like button. If you want to see more from the 10-7 MMA channel, make sure to click subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.